A California county has banned all landlords from conducting criminal background checks on tenants. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's going over, actually, it's something I've covered many times before. Now, usually it's a proposal by jurisdictions to ban landlords from doing criminal background checks on their tenants, right? And I've told you I am extremely opposed to this because not only does it hurt landlords, it also hurts the other tenants that are living within the landlord's property. So a landlord would no longer have one of the most powerful tools to make sure that they're not putting a complete criminal dirtbag into one of their units. And that's wrong, okay? It's wrong. A landlord should have all the tools available, in my opinion, to make sure they put the best possible tenant in there. And instead, they're taking away that ability, and the results are going to be disastrous, okay? It's going to be absolutely disastrous. We're going to see things like, sex offenders suddenly, living up in a building with other tenants who have children. The stuff we don't want to see. We don't want to see that sort of thing. But the landlord's hands are tied because the county, the government thinks they know more, and they feel like the criminals are the victims, okay? That is what my big issue is, right? They treat the criminals like the victims, and then they victimize the actual victims. So, yeah, this is a horrible law, and it will have disastrous effects. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of a law that bans landlords from doing, any criminal backgrounds on their tenants and does not require tenants to disclose any of their arrests or convictions? What do you think of this sort of thing? Do you think there's going to be negative consequences? Do you think that landlords are going to even want to operate in this sort of environment, or that they're going to find some other way to get around it? What do you think that the effects on the tenants are going to be? Okay, I'm just curious what other landlords and what other tenants are saying out there. I know for a fact that as a tenant myself at certain points in my life, I would not want to live next to people who have, extensive criminal records. I just wouldn't. Okay? And, I know what they say. Oh, well, this person doesn't have any violent convictions. Well, you know what's not a violent conviction? Theft. Okay? So do I want a thief living right next to me? They're breaking into my unit, stealing my stuff? No, I do not. Do I want a person who is, bringing drugs in, leaving old needles and crap around my kids? No, I don't. Okay, that's not a violent crime either, but I don't want drugs and all that nonsense around my kids. So guess what? There are a lot of violent crimes, and they simply put, you don't want to be near them. You don't want to be anywhere near them when they happen. So anyway, let's get into this article. Maybe they have a few more details, and I'll let you know exactly what I think as we're going through it. This article is coming from foxnews.com, and it says, California county bans landlords from conducting criminal background checks for housing. The ordinance will prevent private and public landlords from requiring applicants to disclose arrests or convictions. Dumb, okay? The ordinance is dumb. And, I don't know if I've actually heard of any municipality that, totally banned it like this before. So, anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. A California county has passed an ordinance that will ban landlords from conducting criminal background checks on prospective tenants, a move made in an effort to make it easier to get housing and curb discrimination. The Alameda County Board of Supervisors voted 4-0 Tuesday to adopt a fair chance housing ordinance. One member abstained. So basically, it was unanimous, okay? There was no question that this was going to pass at any point. And they're saying that, this will help curb housing discrimination. How? Okay? How exactly is that going to happen? And make it easier to get housing? That's not going to happen either. So, I believe Alameda County, California is in the Bay Area, the county where Oakland, California is at. Okay, so here's the problem. That is an extremely expensive place with an extreme shortage of housing available. So, keeping that in mind, right, the best way to make sure that it's easier to get housing for people with or without criminal backgrounds is to make it so they have more housing, to build more housing. But what does an ordinance like this do? It scares landlords, okay? It scares the guys who are renting that one single family house that they own, and they say, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to rent my house. Instead, I'm going to sell it to owner occupants. And then the people who own the apartment buildings are like, hey, we're going to convert to condos or, whatever. Some landlords are going to just say, hey, we're going to violate the law and still do our screening process the way we want to because we're not willing to put our property at risk like that. And it's hard to blame them. Now, I'm not condoning that sort of action. I believe that a landlord should obey the laws in the place where they're operating, but I'm just saying that I understand why they would do that. The ordinance is part of a package of tenant protection bills. The measure will prohibit both private and public landlords from requiring applicants to disclose arrests or convictions. It also bans advertising that discourages people with criminal histories from applying for housing. The ordinance applies to most residential units in the unincorporated communities of Ashland, Castro Valley, Cherryland, Fairview, San Lorenzo, and Sunol, Fox San Francisco reported. It comes as the Bay Area faces skyrocketing housing costs and a homelessness crisis. Well, how exactly is this helping? Okay, that's what my real question is. So let's say we have somebody with an extensive criminal history. They have just felony convictions. They did time in prison, etc. Right? And they're looking for housing. They come up to the landlord, and they're fresh out of prison. They come up to the landlord. They don't disclose, and then they immediately start causing problems for the other tenants. There's suddenly a lot of criminal activity inside the property, etc. How is this beneficial for the landlord or the other tenants? The only one it's beneficial for is for this one dirtbag who just got out of prison, who now has a place to live. So yeah, that's not helpful for the community unless you're saying that you want these communities to be the homes for all these bad criminal element. I mean, maybe that's what they want. Maybe they want to flood all the criminals into these communities. I don't know, but the logic behind it, like the sympathy they have for these criminals, I'm not feeling it. And there are consequences to the sort of actions when you have that sort of criminal history. Now, that's not to say that, and this is the point that I'm always trying to make, right? They always bring up this one anecdotal story about, oh, well, there was a tenant and he got one marijuana conviction 20 years ago and now he can't find a house. Well, you know what? That's garbage, Very few of the landlords I know would look at a 20-year-old simple marijuana possession conviction and say, well, that's against our criteria. Now, I know some who would, right? But I'm telling you, the mom and pops I know, very few would make that a complete denial. Okay, so yeah, it's a garbage example. It's a stupid example just to make it seem like the problem is bigger than it really is. This isn't really an issue. Okay, all it's really doing is hurting landlords. The California Apartment Association criticized the move, saying Alameda County needs more units, not more bureaucracy and more laws. Rather than focusing on building affordable homes and lifting its eviction moratorium, the county is wasting time by adopting new limits on a landlord's ability to protect the rights of their tenants and provide quality housing, the group said in a statement to Fox News Digital. And that's another good point right there. Alameda County is one of the California counties that still has an eviction moratorium going on. So not only did they pass a whole bunch of new tenant protection laws, but they still have landlords who are stuck with non-paying tenants who are protected through this eviction moratorium. That's how bad this nonsense is, okay? So yeah, I'm not happy reading all this. Before placing new regulations on housing providers, the Board of Supervisors must lift the COVID-era eviction moratorium, which invites tenants to not pay their rent even if they never suffered a COVID-related hardship, the statement continued. The Alameda County should follow other cities across the state and end its outdated and legally questionable eviction moratorium rather than waste time on policies that won't truly solve our housing crisis. Fox News Digital has reached out to the backers of the ordinance as well. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, how do you make a bad situation worse? That's what these bureaucrats and these politicians have done. They've just made a bad situation worse. They already had a very long lasting 3+ year eviction moratorium in place, and now they're saying, oh, we're going to cripple the landlord's ability to do proper tenant screening. Okay? Man, you know, why would you want to be a landlord in a place like this? I wouldn't. Okay, and more landlords are choosing to sell their properties or convert them to other uses rather than continue to face, these ridiculous regulations.